Hey everybody, it's episode 3 of series 2 of UIO, the podcast for teen girls. Hugs to everyone, and thank you for joining UIO, the podcast for teen girls. It is for you and about you inside out. I am Sonja Lewis, your host. Today's podcast is recorded at The Pod, White City Place, London, and we're talking about rising above odds. While opportunities are endless for today's teen girls, so are challenges. From dealing with mental health issues to coping with sexism and earlier sexualization, it must sometimes feel like the odds are stacked against you. Our guest, entrepreneur and barrister Hannilee Fish, will talk to us about how she rose above the odds of poverty, dyslexia, and more. Welcome, Hannilee.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being our guest today, Hannilee, and for sharing your personal stories, including the really painful ones, such as not doing A-levels and suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder. You've had a lot. But I'm founder of ICANN Health, which focuses on workplace well-being with principles I think that can extend to schools and home as well. I think you know better than most of us that stress, drama, and all the rest doesn't keep itself at bay until you're an adult. And when it does hit, whether you're a teen or an adult, you have to find a way to rise above it. And you've done that. So excited to talk to you about this. So talk to us about what it means to be overwhelmed, to feel such despair that you can't see a future.
Wow, there's been many times that I've felt overwhelmed growing up and as an adult, particularly as a teenager when I wasn't feeling like I was fitting in. And probably about the age of 17, really, was when I was at my peak of overwhelm, when I was looking after my mum, feeling over-responsible, trying to fit in, trying to do A-level or AS levels, which I didn't complete, GCSEs, which I didn't do too great in, many overwhelms. I mean, particularly when I was 24 actually, I had a breakdown, and I was flying. I went to America and I thought I was doing a workshop on self-esteem, and actually it wasn't. It was on trauma and what is trauma, and they went through this list of trauma. So they went through what is physical, emotional, intellectual, sexual, spiritual, and basically I ticked every box. And it just sent me into overwhelm. At the time, I was working, I was helping my mum with a trial at the High Court, I was playing football, I was just doing too much. I just couldn't take it anymore. And I remember flying back on the plane, and I just wanted to die, actually. Just wanted to give up. I couldn't cope. I developed Tourette's, or it's like a twitch. And it came out as in a barking sound.
Yeah. But talk to us a little bit about some of the difficulties and the experiences. I know that you've shared a personal, very personal story, and that is that your mom had a suicide attempt. I've heard you talk about that, and I know that we don't have time in this podcast to talk about the whole thing, but you were a teenager when that actually happened. Tell us about that. It was a happy ending. Your mom survived, but tell us about the impact this must have had on you as a teenage girl.
Wow, yes, it had a big impact at the time. I felt very responsible for my mum. I felt like I had to look out for her, and every move that she took, I felt responsible for. She was an alcoholic as well, so I would be pouring the alcohol in the sink, trying to control something I couldn't control. I felt very nervous. I'd be watching her every move, just fearful that I was going to lose my mum. I mean, I was 15, and this concept that I might not have a mum in my life, I really couldn't cope with. So I did whatever I could to try and control that. I mean, if she was stressed or something, and she left the house in a stress, I burst into tears because I think she's going to go and die.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So,
I mean, this is quite a heavy burden for a teenage girl.
For a teenager, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
a teenager should be doing her GCSEs and
Yes.
meeting her friends and, you know, just figuring herself out, not having to figure her parents out or figure her mum out.
Yeah. What was the turning point for you? You didn't have A-levels. You were dyslexic. And what happened in your life to sort of turn things around for you?
I can't necessarily, other than going to treatment, I think the biggest thing is having people believe in me. And it was like a drip feed. It was like drip, drip, drip. Lots of little things where people would believe in me. So the first was when I was 15 and my teacher believed in me to be an athlete, so playing netball, which then translated on the football field. And I started to believe in myself then and represented Tottenham Hotspur ladies and, you know, played quite a high standard. And then I realised, oh yeah, I can do that. And then it led to the next thing of my university lecturer getting me into university and saying, do you know what, I believe in you. You don't have any A-levels, but let's bring you on and I believe in you. So then when I was 22, I started applying for jobs when I left university. I only had a 2-2 and I was applying for jobs that I was not experienced for. But anyway, I applied for a graduate scheme role at Tesco. Just sent an email off in the hope never know. And I got a call from a gentleman called Lindsay and he said, I've seen your CV. He said, there's something about you that makes me believe in you. He said, the structure in your writing of the CV is rubbish. I mean, I was dyslexic, so at that time I didn't really know what I was doing. And yeah, and he said, I believe in you. And he sat down, he spent hours working on my CV with me. And it turns out, it transpires that he was actually Alan Sugar's right-hand man at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And that, I don't know, it's little things like that, like those drips. And then when I was 27, I was involved in a trial at the High Court with my mum. Mm-hmm. We were litigants in person. And as a result of that, I got one scholarship from BPP Law School. And the dean of the law school obviously believed in me to give me a scholarship. Yes. And then because of that, I believed in myself to apply for more scholarships. So then I got 4 more scholarships within a temple. And it later transpired that it took these 2 women on the interview panel. Yes. I heard through one of them, she said that we really believed in you. So there's not really like one moment that I can say, oh yeah, my life turned around. It did start getting better once I had treatment and once I started working on my self-esteem, because my self-esteem had been on the floor. But that came as a result of people believing. So when people believed in me, I believed in myself. Yeah,
I think there is a key theme. Yeah. Maybe there wasn't the light bulb moment, but when you talk about people actually believing you, I think that theme seems to run through your journey. I want to pick up on some things that you talked about. You talked about sports, you talked about education. And so I want to talk about sports first and how sports did make a difference, in your life. You talked about being on the football team. How did it make a difference in your life as a teenage girl?
Yeah, actually, I really remember, I really hated PE. And I used to be the one who would write the sick notes and then get my mum to sign it so I could skive off of PE lessons. So I would be that.
I remember that.
Yeah. So it's really funny. At 14 years old, my mum took me to a local youth club and they were playing basketball in the backyard. And I joined in, and the reason why my mum took me is because she was so concerned of me being on the street.
Yes.
And getting into the wrong crowd.
Yes.
We grew up in poverty. We lived in a council area, not a very affluent area, not an area of opportunities. So this sports or youth centre became the area of the opportunity in my life. And sport has taught me so much. And firstly is discipline, showing up.
Yes.
Teamwork, connection.
That's really key. When I was a teenage girl, I was not the one who was chosen to be on the sports teams. Yeah. I was not the one who was encouraged to play sports. I was encouraged to do other things, but I was rather worried about PE. And very happy to write the sick notes because I knew that when it came time to select teams, the girls wouldn't select me. Yeah. So what sort of advice or what can you say to a teenage girl nowadays? How do they overcome that? Because as you have pointed out, sports teaches so much. And if you can get involved, I think the message is to get involved. But how do you overcome those discrepancies?
Yeah, you were reminded as you were talking, I was visualizing I was that girl, and initially it's very funny. I was that girl who was always picked last when I played for the boys. I was always picked last, and what would be really funny is and even now I still get picked last. And it's really funny, and when I go and skin them on the pitch, they're really shocked. They're like, oh gosh, and then the next time I'm picked first. There's this really good saying that it's everything I think, say and do is all about me and not about you. And that really helped me.
That's amazing.
And understand that's by a lady called Pia Melody. It really helped me to know that basically don't give a crud about what other people think of me. But I very much believe you make what you want of the world. So I'm in the law, right?
Yes.
I'm in tax law.
Yes.
I'm completely dominated by men, but I don't see sex. I just see where I'm going and what I'm doing. So for me, it's just going for what you want, and facing the challenges and having good people around you if you feel the sexism to talk about it. Yeah, exactly. I suppose it's about being the creator, not the competitor.
Yes.
And you leading, and that's what I'm hoping to do with my life,
Yeah, well, that's a brilliant way to look at it. I think it's very encouraging for our teenage girl listeners. I want to talk a little bit about social media. I was thinking about my own life growing up as a teenager, which was a very long time ago, but still I was thinking about it and really trying to think of what can I compare it to? And there's really nothing. But I do remember chatting on the telephone, having a telephone in my room and nattering away and chatting at night and whispering because I'm not supposed to be on the phone, and having this confidential conversation with a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and knowing the next day that when I went to school that was a confidential conversation. And if by some exception it wasn't, I was able to either stop hanging out with that person, not confide in them anymore. But it's different nowadays. And I just want to talk about privacy and how social media might have a role in the experience of today's teenage girls feeling as if the odds are stacked against them when it comes to privacy. They're really growing up under a spotlight. How might this impact their well-being?
Yeah, it's a really, really powerful and good topic. I see so much pressure on young people and young women. When we're online, it's often there's this pressure, especially peer pressure, to do something and to be something that you may not want to do or may not be. And it comes back down to that thing of when we feel like we don't want to do something, or when we have a gut feeling that something's not right.
Yes,
it's like listen to that. Don't post it on Facebook yet, because once it's online, right? It's not like as you say, it's not. And from a privacy perspective, certainly I'm more careful about what I do or don't do. And back when I was younger, I was just a bit more blasé and then once it's out there, and it's just a little bit more difficult to control.
Yeah. And sometimes I think the problem is that you don't put it out there. I mean, there's a situation of managing your media posts and managing your situation. But I was watching a documentary, and it was something that ABC News covered in the United States, and they were talking to some teenage girls. They had one where they talked to teenage girls, and they had one where they talked to teenage boys. And it was, I think the BBC also did something similar, where it was just very hurtful what people would say about you on social media. And I suppose it's like you said, being careful what you post yourself, and then maybe being careful about the company you keep. Maybe there's something to say about that, because I think it's so different these days.
Yeah, it's so interesting because social media is, a lot of it as well isn't necessarily truth. A lot of it's how do I come across to the outside world. And certainly as I got older, but as a teenager, there is that pressure to almost have a mask. And from well-being or just being human, the most authentic connection comes from vulnerability and not having a mask. Now, if you put that on Facebook or on Instagram, it's not necessarily going to create the feedback that we probably want, say, if me and you were just in a private conversation or like now.
Right.
It's not going to have the same effect. The flip side to it is the narcissistic side, is how do I look? It's all about me. I've got quite a few friends who are influencers because they have beautiful bodies and beautiful faces, and it becomes about how do I look rather than actually who am I as a person.
Yeah, I think this does lead to the question about sexualization, and I think that we adults need to take some responsibility for that. I think that girls are still disproportionately sexualized. You know, it's happening to all children, but with girls, at an earlier and earlier age, girls are beginning to think about their bodies. They're beginning to think about what size they are. They're beginning to think about their hair. And there's nothing wrong with all of these things being important, you know, for one's self-worth. There's a bit of sort of overkill and a bit of an obsession, and it starts to happen earlier and earlier, and there's less focus on, as you say, who you are inside.
Well, that's exactly it. Like, if you look at the development of a child, the first 18 months is probably the most important time of a child's life to when they become, but then 18 to 17, or 18 to even say 9, 10, they're in that child-like phase where they're learning and developing who they are and a bit of personality. Now, I heard the other day a 7-year-old say she wants to shave her legs. That for me is not development. That is depriving them of development. And that's the thing, like when we're over-sexualizing these children, it's too early. It's too early for them as children to handle because they don't
understand it.
Exactly. It's been so indoctrinated in people that maybe that's what they think they need to do. But actually, you don't need to flaunt your body. You are enough. They are enough as you are enough as you are. Yes. You don't need your body to be seen on Facebook or Instagram.
But what can we as adults do? So, what can we do? I mean, obviously, we're doing this podcast right now. You've got your wonderful organization that we'll talk about a little bit later. You've written a wonderful book that we'll talk about, you know, a little bit later. And there are lots of things that are happening. But I think for me, part of the idea behind the podcast is that I really feel that as an adult, as a woman, that I definitely have to role model some way, somehow. And I owe it to girls to be able to say, we got it wrong. We got it wrong. How do we stop and turn this around? So what can we do? And who needs to be doing it?
I think actually what it's really going to take is going to take really well-known people that influence people, young people, to say, hey, no, I'm not going to treat my body like this, or I'm not going to do this. This is how I'm going to act on social media. This is my truth. This is how authentic. This is who I am.
Yeah, I think what I hear you saying is it's a bit like corporate responsibility, but it's not just the corporations who have when I'm using the word corporate loosely, whether it's the corporations, whether it's the celebrities, whether it's the schools, the parents, all of us have a responsibility because some way, somehow, throughout society, norms are set. Social media has an upside as well, or many upsides, but one of them that I want to talk about is, before social media, it was much easier to do things behind closed doors. Of course, there's a downside to that, but there is an upside to being able to prevent things like bullying and discriminating and sexualizing and so on, because sometimes things can go on social media and out things and get things out there. These days, it offers a medium to campaign against such things. Talk to us about maybe how girls can use social media in that way to set norms that serve them rather than living by these norms that have been set for them.
I think the exciting thing about, the other exciting things about social media, it does, as again, I talk about this competitor versus creator, it helps you to be a creator. Is you can go and start your own podcast online and then send it around or connect with your friends and create a movement. Or you can, I know for me, meditation and mindfulness are a really big interest of mine. And there's many communities online that we can connect and talk about the things that actually I really want to connect on. There's even like, I don't know if you know about Fortnite. It's a computer game that teenagers are, anyway.
I heard about it.
Yeah.
I've never played it.
So there's like Fortnite communities online that where they're getting together and talking, and there is the connection.
Yes.
There is connecting to people around the world that maybe we hadn't been able to connect with.
For me today with you, I think what I want to really get at and help to understand myself and for teenage girls to understand is social media can be used as a platform to rise above any odds that you feel that are stacked against you. It is one of those things that can work against you. Maybe going back to what you said earlier, some way, somehow, if you're not really aware of what's going on and you're seeking external validation, I'll do it that way rather than sort of living within your own space. But it's definitely can be a very positive thing as well. Talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned mindfulness and you mentioned meditation, things that, really work for you and really speak to you and getting over difficult situations. And this leads me to talk about, I Can. Tell us a little bit about your organization and why you founded it and how it helps.
Yeah, no, mindfulness, when I first got introduced to meditation and mindfulness, I really thought it was for hippies, and I tried it and I just fall asleep and it wasn't for me, and I really, really struggled with it at first. And that's the beauty of it. Like, it can be difficult. When I was in treatment, I went into a treatment centre for a little while and to deal with PTSD, and that's when I was originally introduced to it. I didn't realise actually when I was a teenager I'd been doing it because I used to be scared to sleep at night.
Okay.
And what I would do when I was young is I'd I'd go from toe to head and I'd clench my feet, then I'd clench my calves and my hamstrings and my quads and then my glutes and just work my way up my body, and that would help me just to relax. And I do that quite a lot as well, because also I found it helped with sport. I didn't realise that was mindfulness, and mindfulness is just simply being in the moment without judgment, being in the present moment. And even as I say that, I mean, if someone had said that to me as a teenager, I would have said that was so hippie.
Yeah.
But I really value it now, because what it does is it helps me to get grounded and centered in now.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really key message, because being in the moment is so important, but you can get absorbed as well when you've got your GCSEs or your A levels or whatever it is that you're doing, or if you're a major athlete, and you can sometimes it can overtake you, the pressures. And so it sounds like it's important to have that balance, and mindfulness helps you to stay in the moment, but it also stops you from just exploding.
Yeah, sure. So, and because I saw the benefits, I was really blessed in that I got offered a publishing contract, and so I created this book called 1 Minute Miracles, and it's 49 tools to expand living. So it's anything from writing a gratitude list to taking a walk in a park to removing a mask and being a bit more vulnerable, talking about vulnerability, to prayer even, or to being present. There's 49 tools, and it was those tools that helped me to overcome PTSD. And I really wanted to get that out there in the world. I can't say I was one of these people that wanted to be an author. As I said, I was dyslexic, I could barely read and write because of the traumatic child. Like, I wasn't really present. So writing and English were not my strong points. So it was just quite lucky, really, that I got this contract with this publisher.
This is really, really good, though, because I think that it's key what you've put in the book. I mean, it's, again, 1 Minute Miracles. Tell us where girls can get the book. Where can we get it?
Yeah, so at the moment it's on the publisher's website, and it's J for Juliet, F for Freddie Publishing. So it's JF Publishing. And yeah, they can order it online there. Yeah. That's
really cool. Well, before we get out of here, I do want to hear about I Can.
So originally it was set up to, I saw a lot of people under a lot of pressure at work and not really knowing how to deal with it. And so I was going to utilise the tools from my book and taking it into workplaces. And that's what I've been doing. But what seems to be happening more and more is I'm sort of heading towards the sort of schools route and teenage route and children's route, because actually it's probably a bit like you with this podcast. if you impact a child, you're impacting the whole of their future, and then they're going to go on and they're going to be speaking to friends. And I'm finding more and more that actually children are coming to mindfulness, and the rate at which they're taking to is incredible. And because children's minds are more pure, they haven't got the distractions as much as they're
yes.
So at teenage when they start getting distractions like sexuality and influences from outside, and how do I look, what am I wearing, how should my hair be, all these sort of, and especially from social media, they start having. So what meditation mindfulness does, it quietens that part of the mind, and this is why I'm being called more and more to take ICANN into schools and to working with
So
young
what do
people.
you do when you go into the schools? You do workshops?
Yeah, it's different. I've done workshops. I've done just giving talks, a lot of my testimony, but also it's generally a talk and then it ends with a mindfulness session. So
lovely.
I'll do the sort of the 3 steps to the ABCs to mindfulness. The first one is A, for awareness. So being aware of this present moment, what are my 5 senses saying? B, being aware of your breath. As soon as we focus on our breath, our mind isn't thinking. So if we can think about our breath, you're not getting distracted by thought. And then C is compassion. The whole thing about mindfulness is being present in the moment without judgment. So compassion. So doing it with love and compassion and judgment free.
That's really cool. Give girls some hot tips about how they can rise above odds in the world that they're living in.
Okay, so 2 that come to my mind straight away are the first one is gratitude. Not every situation is going to be turn out in the way that we want it. We may face adversity. We may have difficulties. We may be under stress. We may have exams. We may have been bullied. Whatever it is. I think one of the tools in a 1 Minute Miracles is write a gratitude list before you go to bed. The more that we practice being appreciative of the good things that we have and noticing them, the more we actually attract that in our life. And actually, when we notice it's good, it helps us to feel good as well. So when we're going through those difficult situations, that's the first one. The second one I would say is hold a vision. You said to me, how do you chase your dreams or reach your goals? What I do is I visualize the success. So, when I'm playing football, I give an example. I was playing at the Walker Stadium, and before the game, I went and got a T-shirt and I wrote "God blessed me" on my T-shirt, because I saw that I'm going to score a goal. I knew I was going to score a goal in this game. I scored pretty imminently, and it was the winning goal. And then I went up to the camera and I pulled the shirt over and I went "God bless me" to the camera. And so I think, visualize what you want. Don't allow the fact that you're female or male to hold you back.
Yes.
Sex has nothing to do with it. If you want something and you're talented, just go for it. And visualize yourself. Literally visualize yourself touching it. What does it taste like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like to hold your trophy, or, to pass your exam? Like when you open up your exam paper and you got your GCSE and you've got your A's, or whatever it is to you, visualize it. And then the third thing is, I would say, is hang with good people. Have people in your life that don't put you down, that will encourage your success, that see stuff that maybe you don't see in yourself. And one might be listening to this and thinking, yeah, but I don't have anyone in my life like that. Go out and seek a mentor. You are valuable, you're enough, and there is someone out there that will believe in you, and then and your vision and your goal.
That's really great stuff. Thank you so much, Hannilee, for being with us today on UIO. And we really hope that if we get loads of questions, and I'm sure we will, that you'll answer them. But again, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
That is a wrap for UIO on Rising Above Odds, recorded at the Pod, White City Place. Very timely topic with lots of great takeaways from Hannilee Fish. Thank you, girls, for listening, and thank you, God, for the opportunity to do the show. Today, I want to pray for girls everywhere in their quest to rise above the odds of poverty, lack of education, sexism, racism, whatever barriers they're up against that makes life difficult. I pray for access to resources and all things helpful which lead to good mental and physical health. Coming up, we're going to be talking with Stay Calm and content founder Kat Williams on dating. Join me then. Until then, hit me up on Twitter at Sonja Lewis, Instagram at Sonja D. Lewis, Facebook on thisandthat.co.uk/UIO-podcast. Tell me what you want to hear about on UIO Podcast and keep sending those questions on any of the episodes. Take care of you inside out and remember it is UIO.